The Boston Red Sox pitching situation is slightly better than people are making it out to be. Why? I'll tell you on Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and noted diehard Red Sox fan since the age of 4. And I'm also the host of the Boston Balling podcast, and I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox straight to your favorite feed for free. And who doesn't love free? So you have nothing to lose but to tune in. So start your day off right with Locked On Red Sox. The Locked On Podcast Network is here for you with your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Red Sox, where we're sitting here and just accepting and coming to the realization that the Red Sox are no longer a big market franchise. They have that reputation of being one of the most historic franchises in baseball, and they do have a lot of money that they could be spending and a lot of options that they could be choosing from to make this team better headed into 2024. And I've started to come to the conclusion that I don't think there are really many more plans to make this Red Sox team better for 2024 than they already are. I think we're planning on seeing this roster on opening day. And I hope that I'm wrong, because the Red Sox definitely could use another move or two, and maybe it'll happen. But if the roster as stands is the opening day roster, although there are definitely still some holes, I did want to take some time to go over some things about this roster heading into the 2024 season that could be a little bit underrated. And that starts with the system, because for players, a lot of their development relies on the coaches they have around them and the people working with them. And the Red Sox, from a pitching coach standpoint, didn't always have the best situation. But now they have a guy in there, and Andrew Bailey, who has a proven track record in San Francisco, working with pitchers there, making them better. And if I'm the Red Sox, I'm very excited about having Andrew Bailey in this organization, because he was able to turn around the careers of some pitchers over there in San Francisco. So by him coming in and working with these Red Sox pitchers, that's going to help a lot with their growth process. I did have the pleasure of speaking with him at Winter Weekend, and he basically explained to me that as a pitching coach, you have to take the approach that every guy is different. They all have their own routines, their own habits, and in order to help them maximize their potential, it's about understanding that and identifying those strengths and weaknesses that every pitcher has, and making sure that you're adapting to that and adjusting the way you're working with them to fit what works best for them. Now, what I mean by that is, Brian Bayo isn't going to have the same workout routine as Lucas Giolito. So heading into games, Andrew Bailey is going to have to look at that at face value and say, okay, this type of feedback might be better for Giolito, and he might be able to take that and run with it and improve his game that way. Whereas I might not be able to say that same thing to Brian Bayo, because he might not understand. It might not resonate as much with him because his work style is different. So that's something that is really unique to me about Andrew Bailey. And another thing that he said is that he doesn't feel like the Red Sox need to make any more additions to the rotation this offseason. He said he believes in the guys they have here, and confidence in the staff is a huge thing. Andrew Bailey has had a lot of experience first of all, being on the player side, but then also being on the coaching side with being that pitching coach in San Francisco. And if he's really confident with the guys the Red Sox have on the roster, that's a promising sign that he probably knows what he can do to work with them to allow them to develop and grow in the way that they need to. If I'm a Red Sox pitcher, I'm very excited to have Andrew Bailey here. And hopefully the guys are open and receptive towards him and his feedback. And that's something to me that is underrated. I expect big development this season from Brian Bayo and from Cutter Crawford. I am concerned about the ability of Nick Pivetta to be able to start and pitch as effectively as he did out of the bullpen. And I'm also concerned about Lucas Giolito and whether he'll be able to restore himself back to form the way that he did before all of these obstacles got in his way. And I've talked about on the show before the question marks that this Red Sox roster has. A lot of things need to go right for this pitching staff in order for this team to be more competitive. But people are seriously not talking enough about the Andrew Bailey effect. He could come in here and really help these guys develop and have turned Brian Bayo into the ace that the Red Sox have been coveting and looking for, and turn Cutter Crawford into a solid number 2 or number 3, and hopefully hone in on what had Lucas Giolito in the position he was in when he was so successful and help get him back to that. If he can do that, the Red Sox pitching staff as a whole is going to be much better. And think about how relatively good the bullpen was last year, all the way up until they started getting fatigued and the guys were pitching a lot more than they usually are and pulling a lot more weight in games because the starters couldn't go that deep. He can even elevate their games even more and hopefully work with them on what they need to do to set them up for success in the roles that a reliever should be doing, pitching 2, maybe 3 innings at a time, and really getting them to throw their best stuff during those times. Now, if you look at the Red Sox pitching depth as a whole, it's not the greatest, but I do believe that Andrew Bailey has a strategy involved in that he can work with these pitchers and say, okay, I want to focus on developing these guys and have them do this the right way, as opposed to throwing a lot of money out there at somebody like Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell, which I still would love because they're proven starters who have had postseason track records of success. But if the Red Sox don't do that and they take the route of we're confident in who we have here, we're confident in Andrew Bailey, I am too. I really like the way that he approaches the game, how he's looked at it from both a player perspective and a coaching perspective, so he can help some of these guys work through that pressure that comes with pitching in games and help them try to find out what makes them distracted, how can they get back on track, really getting to know them. And that's something that stood out to me already so far about Bailey since he got hired, was he seems to really be getting to know the guys on the staff. And it's out of his control who the Red Sox put on the roster and what they put in front of him. But what's in his control is the progress of those pitchers. And I'm looking at Andrew Bailey and I'm saying, this is the man for the job. This is the guy who could be the right fit for helping these pitchers develop. And we've seen him do it before. And that's something to me that's underrated about the 2024 Boston Red Sox, because I think we're going to see a lot of growth from these starters, which naturally will make them a more competitive team. And coming up, the next underrated asset of the 2024 Boston Red Sox is something related more to position players. So that's coming up. Do you love winning money all the time? If you do and you answered yes to that, then head to FanDuel today. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I really like FanDuel because it's so forgiving and it gives you a lot of different opportunities to win. So if you're at all thinking about getting into sports betting, FanDuel is certainly the way to go, and now is the good time to do it. Also, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's so exciting for Locked On because nobody else does this. We're the only network where you have access to a 24/7 stream to get caught up in everything going on in sports. So if that sounds appealing to you, just head to YouTube and subscribe to Locked On Sports Today, and you can enjoy everything that comes with that. In talking about the most underrated assets of the 2024 Boston Red Sox, I've already mentioned the natural growth of the pitching staff under Andrew Bailey, who has a really good mindset about how to work with these guys and how to make them better and understanding the individualized aspect of each of these guys. So that's one thing to me about the Red Sox that people aren't talking about enough. The second asset that I think is a little bit underrated is the potential of the catching core. I think there's more ability here than people are talking about, particularly with Connor Wong. He showed a lot of improvement in 2023, especially because he had to take on a lot more with his workload. He was in a spot where Reese McGuire got injured and he had to fill in for a lot more games because of that. And while he was going through that process, he was forced to get better because he was getting more reps in, and more reps naturally a lot of times can lead to more success. His defense has always been pretty good, but it got even better. He was throwing guys out that were trying to steal second base. He was making really good plays at the plate. And offensively, he improved throughout the season too. He was getting some big hits, finding more ways to get on base as opposed to swinging and missing, and he was making contact more. And that's something that we need to see more of. And going into this season, his confidence seems to have skyrocketed because of all of this and the opportunities that he got in 2023 to catch more and be in the mindset of, I'm the guy right now. They need to rely on me more often than they usually do. And having that mindset could go a lot further than people are talking about. And granted, Kyle Teal is on the brink of coming up to the majors. He's definitely not going to start the season in the majors by any means, but we could see him maybe closer to the end of the 2024 season getting some time up in the majors, if not 2025. So either way, that's right around the corner. And the Red Sox will then have to reevaluate their catching situation and say, hey, do we want to keep Connor Wong as that number 2 catcher behind Kyle Teal? Do we think Reese McGuire has more potential and we want to keep him? So it's a matter of the Red Sox then deciding which of these catchers they want to keep around when Kyle Teal does come up. But for now, you have a catcher in Connor Wong who grew a lot in 2023, and hopefully that continues in the right direction in 2024. And now that he's gained some more confidence in himself, he'll likely get to the point where he's feeling more comfortable out there. He's gotten more used to having a lot of pressure on him because the more you play, the more likely it is that you're going to have some bad games. And he's taken a lot of that heat and that pressure when he hasn't performed well. And hopefully it's only fueled him to play better in 2024. And with the way the Red Sox are constructed right now, he's naturally going to step into a big role again heading into this season. Physically on the field, he won't hopefully have to play as many games because hopefully Reese will stay healthy and they'll be able to share the workload more. But from the standpoint of his positioning in the lineup, the Red Sox are going to need him to step up and be able to hit more due to the construction of the fact that they never really replaced Justin Turner's production in the lineup. So unless they do that before spring training starts, everybody's going to have to up their numbers a little bit to make up for that hole in the lineup. So if Connor Wong can get to the point where he's working his way into being more and more confident at the plate as the season goes on, and he increases his numbers, that could be huge for the Red Sox lineup. I mean, we're looking at a lineup here that obviously still has Devers, has Tristan Casas, who I expect to have an even better season in 2024. And he put up a great rookie full season in 2023, where he was at the point where he was fighting for Rookie of the Year. So he had a lot going for him during the 2023 season. So I expect him to be one of the best hitters on the team in 2024. Jaron Duran hopefully continues to improve in the same way that he was improving. You know, you never really know. His 2023 season could have been a fluke. He might regress a little bit in this upcoming season, but hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully that was just a flip of the switch for him, that he figured something out and was able to apply it to him on the field, and that he can now use that to continue to grow. Then you have Tyler O'Neill, who could absolutely smash at Fenway if he stays healthy. And that's going to be the key for him, is if he stays healthy. And Connor Wong is somebody you could slot in there and say, if he's able to continue to improve his numbers at the plate, then that's another guy you could use as a secret weapon offensively. And I'm not saying he's going to be the best hitter on the team by any means. I don't think that'll ever happen. It's pretty rare that that happens with catchers. But if he can get a little bit better each day, by the middle of the season, we're looking at a legitimate hitter here who we can rely on a day-to-day basis to help the Red Sox to win more games than we're expecting them to win. So from the standpoint of looking back at Connor Wong's 2023 season, you can't help but be excited about him heading into 2024 because of the way he ended the season and how many boxes he was checking off and how many things he was improving on. So I'm watching for that storyline in 2024. And then Reese McGuire, yes, is a backup catcher, but he's a totally fine backup catcher. I mean, offensively, he was putting up the numbers. He was making contact. He was getting on base, and he was making things happen. And his defense is not as good as Connor Wong's is, but maybe that's something that he continues to improve on. Again, there are a lot of guys who we're looking for bigger seasons from in 2024. And if they can do that and the catching situation can increase just a slight bit in 2024, then we're looking at a good spot here with this duo. And that's another area that I'm looking at as saying it's going to be better than people think in 2024. And what's the last of the most underrated assets of the 2024 Boston Red Sox? You'll find out next. Don't forget that you can actually follow and subscribe to Locked On Red Sox anywhere you get your podcast for free during the season. There's new episodes Monday through Friday where I will be here reacting to everything going on the field, whether they make me mad, happy, sad, or anything in between. I feel all those emotions when watching Red Sox baseball, sometimes more positive emotions than others. So if you want to be along for the ride, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And you can also follow the show on Twitter at LO_Red Sox, where I will be initiating more conversation about the team, especially during the season. You can interact with other Red Sox fans that way. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Gabby Hurlbut10 or on Instagram at Gabby_Hurlbut10, where I like to post stories and figure out where people's head is at, post a prompt, kind of see what people are thinking. So definitely follow me on those platforms, and also subscribe to the Locked On Sports Today channel on YouTube. It's a 24/7 sports streaming channel so that you don't have to worry about missing anything related to sports. It's honestly so nice. All of your favorite Locked On hosts and experts are on this stream, and it basically keeps you up to date with the biggest sports stories of the day, no matter where you're at or what time zone you're in. So you don't have to sit there and scroll through your Twitter to find out everything. You can watch this live stream wherever you are, wherever you go. There's always something going on. So subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube if this at all interests you. What might interest you as well is the 2024 Boston Red Sox, in that there are some underrated things about this team heading into the 24 season that if these things go right, the Boston Red Sox could be a better team than people are giving them credit for. The first one that I mentioned was Andrew Bailey working with this pitching staff, being able to connect with these guys on a level they need to be able to get the most out of them, because the Red Sox, the last few years, I felt like weren't in a position where the pitchers were playing to the best of their ability and their potential wasn't being maximized. And that's something I think Andrew Bailey will truly emphasize and look for as ways to maximize every single pitcher's talent in that rotation and in the bullpen. The second one was the catching duo of Reese McGuire and Connor Wong, particularly Connor Wong. Expect to see some improvement from him this year, and that'll be huge for the catching core, because if he continues to improve the way that he did last year, the Red Sox will be in very good shape from a catching situation, because Reese McGuire is a totally fine backup catcher. And finally, things have to go right for Boston in a lot of ways. Nobody's denying that. A lot of players have to step into bigger roles, show improvement, show that they've been working during the offseason. And one of those players includes Masataka Yoshida. I expected there to be a little bit of an adjustment period for him when he was coming over from the Japanese league to play in Major League Baseball. The Red Sox signed him to a pretty decent free agent contract. People weren't as familiar with his game. They only really knew from watching clips of him play and seeing reports that he likes to hit home runs a lot. That was the biggest thing people knew about Yoshida. But then when he got here in 2023, he was able to mix up his contact at the plate. He actually really wasn't hitting a lot of home runs, and he was hitting singles or doubles a lot of the time and making contact with the ball in other ways and showing that he has an understanding of plate discipline, hitting different types of pitches and not just trying to hit the ball over the fence. He primarily can hit fastballs and does need to get better on the off-speed pitches. But now that he has a season under his belt in Major League Baseball, I do expect improvement from him. There has to be a reason why the Red Sox signed him. They definitely saw something in him they liked. And I find it hard to believe that he lost a lot of his skills from the Japanese league just from moving over here. Defensively, I don't expect much improvement, because even in the Japanese league, he wasn't really putting up good numbers defensively, and that was a liability and weakness for him to begin with. So I expect his defense to stay where it was at and be a bit of a problem. I do wonder, if the Red Sox would consider moving him to designated hitter. I would be interested in seeing that happen, because it would help take away the liability there in left field with him playing there. So I do wonder if they decide to make that move, but if not, I expect to see more of the same from him on defense. But at the plate, I think he's going to have a lot better season. He now has a full season under his belt of seeing live major league pitchers. That's a big thing for somebody who is a rookie, whether they came over from a different league outside of the US or they are just a rookie who's been used to being in the minors. Those types of guys need to get used to seeing major league pitching. And he saw a full season of major league pitchers now. And if he can change up the types of pitches that he's able to hit and doesn't solely rely on hitting fastballs, he's going to be a tough out. And he's going to be a guy that opposing pitchers don't really want to face. And later on in the season, I started to find that it seemed like opposing pitchers were starting to figure him out in a way, because he was only really able to hit the fastballs. And we don't want that. We don't want pitchers to say he's predictable. And if he can hone in on his strengths and weaknesses this offseason, gain some more confidence, and really lock in on what he needs to do, he's going to have a better season in 2024. I know there were people saying the Red Sox should trade him. I don't think that makes sense. Give the guy more of a chance. He's only been in Major League Baseball for one season so far. And if he continues to perform the way that he is, especially during that second half of the season in 2023, then maybe you look into options and see if he's a better fit elsewhere. And especially if they do acquire another outfielder and they decide to move him to DH, then he does deserve another chance because offensively, he wasn't an issue. His issue was more on defense. And I trust that he's going to have a better season. And all of that is to say, this is underrated because a lot of Red Sox fans are down on him right now. A lot of Red Sox fans don't trust him after the season that he had. They think he's a mediocre player who can bring some offense and no defense. And they don't see him really being a guy who's going to be able to make a big difference on this team. I understand people saying he's not going to be able to bring defense. That's 100% true. But he still needs some more time. And going back to it being underrated, if he does grow and have a better 2024 season, that's just more protection for Devers in the lineup and another guy who Red Sox fans can look at and say, yeah, I want Yoshida to be at the plate right now. That's our goal here, is for him to get to the point where people are thinking about his name in their head when the bases are loaded, there's 2 outs, and a player for the Red Sox gets to come up with a chance to tie or win the game. And the goal for Yoshida is for fans to say, I want him at the plate. And I could see that happening with him. Experience is so underrated. I mean, the more somebody gets acclimated, the better that they can be. And obviously, Fenway Park, like I've said a lot on the show, is not the easiest place to play. And so for him, he might not have been used to that type of environment that Fenway Park entailed. Now he has a full season of Red Sox baseball under his belt. He can go into 2024, hopefully with a little more confidence, a strong head on his shoulders, and a better approach at the plate so that he's able to effectively hit more of those off-speed pitches and not just the fastball. Because I'd be interested in seeing him just mash baseballs at Fenway in 2024. And he could be the hitter that Red Sox fans are waiting for him to be. And if he is, it's going to elevate the Red Sox overall game in general because he's another player who we hope to see a lot of improvement from. And again, all of this is not to say this definitely will happen. The Red Sox are going to be a very good team because, as I've said before, there are question marks when it comes to this, but they are question marks that if any of them are answered, then the Red Sox will be a strong baseball team in 2024 to the point where they maybe could compete for a playoff spot. And when you look at the overall roster makeup of this team, you look at it and say, ugh, they need at least one more, probably 2 players, which 100% is true. But there are certain things here and there that you can at least look at and say, okay, if this guy grows and develops a little bit more, then we're already looking at a better situation in the outfield. And that's where I stand with Yoshida. I wanted to be patient and give him more than one season to prove that he could be the guy here in Boston and he can be one of those players who we're looking back at after the 2024 season and saying he was one of the team MVPs. Because remember, early on in the season, people were talking about his Rookie of the Year campaign and him potentially being an all-star. And people tend to forget about that because he had a very average, mediocre second half of the season. So if he can get back to what he was earlier on in the season, we know that that guy is in there that has that potential to succeed and to be a key asset to the Boston Red Sox in 2024. We just need to wait and see if he lives up to that and see if it happens. But as I like to always say, just try your best to keep the faith. Spring training is right around the corner. We are so close now. I can smell baseball. I can smell sitting at Fenway Park watching games. So get excited, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.